had that I thought was kind of suspicious was maybe dealing with the fact that he just wasn't going to play Sunday, or maybe his injury had creeped back in. But man, it ended up being a full blown releasal, and I just.
I'm just like you in the idea that the first two things went through my mind. First things first was injury. I'm wondering if he's injured again, and he's just trying to, I guess, motivate himself through religion that, he's going to bounce back from this even stronger. Okay, I can understand that because that's a C.J. Spiller type of tweet. And then he doesn't play on Sunday, and we find.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, with the move today to release him, and all of a sudden, it's kind of crazy how sometimes once something happens, the floodgates open, and then you start to find out all of the behind-the-scenes info. Well, now you find out that C.J. Spiller knew on Wednesday that they were going to try to, they kept him out of the game because they were going to try. On this team or not. That is not my problem with Sean Payton, releasing him. My problem comes in is the absolute incompetence that it shows, that you did so much research into the offseason trying to bring this guy in. Label him as the next guy to be your Darren Sproles, Reggie Bush type of dynamic player in the offense. And then yet a year later, you're releasing him. Was basically when he's healthy and you had an opportunity to. And it's not just C.J. Spiller. It's the idea that you gave Junior Gillette money, and a year later he was out the door. You gave Brandon Browner money. A year later he was out the door. You drafted guys, Stanley Jean-Baptiste and Kenny Stills, and a year later they're out the door. This is starting to become a habit. This is not a snapshot. It's not a one-time thing. This is becoming a habit of the Saints, and I, for one, am sick of seeing it. And now there's news that Stephon Anthony could possibly be the next casualty.
Well, I'll move on to my thoughts of Stephon in a second because I'm not happy with that situation either, and it has nothing to do with him. But let's say this about Sean Payton and what happened. This is a quote from Sean Payton regarding Cadet and Spiller in the game that it was just one of these games where we knew Cadet was going to have a big role in his position, and it really just came down to numbers. It's really one of the challenges with 6 running backs on the roster, so a lot of it was for our game plan. Okay, can kind of understand until let me throw out some stats for you. Everybody knows I'm a stats guy. Who doesn't like stats? Okay, let's start with this one. Travaris Cadet, 1 carry for 1 yard. That's a 1 yard per carry average, everybody. And let's go to the next one. This is the big one. This is what C.J. Spiller was brought in for, and that's receiving out of the backfield. Travaris Cadet, 3 receptions, 7 targets. So he didn't even catch half the targets. 1.5 yards a catch. So you're telling me that C.J. Spiller, this dynamic player, maybe not on a Reggie Bush level, maybe not on a Darren Sproles level, but he can't do better than that? He can't do better than 4 total touches for 15 yards? He can't do better than 3 catches from 7 targets? You go with Cadet? I mean, come on. It just blows my mind. I'm having trouble comprehending the logic there. Because now we're going to sit on the dead money either way. The only way we get a little wiggle room is if somebody picks up Spiller, which most likely will happen. But come on. Really? Cadet is a better player in this spot than C.J. Spiller?
I can't say it any better than that. Because what you just summed up was exactly my thought process. It doesn't get any simpler than basically saying, who do you want on the field if you have a clutch moment? Do you want C.J. Spiller or do you want Travaris Cadet? And the problem that I'm having with that is that hindsight is always 20/20, and it upsets you when you see it afterwards. We saw this last season when Travaris Cadet was brought back after C.J. Spiller has the game against Dallas, and he makes that game-winning overtime touchdown run out of the wheel route.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically Travaris Cadet show when he came back, and C.J. Spiller was healthy at this moment. Okay, you can tell me he didn't have the lateral quickness that you want a running back to have. Fine. But the one thing he showed you he had was straight line speed, and you still didn't use him. This offseason you come in, you just basically talk up C.J. Spiller like he's the second coming of Gale Sayers, but you rarely ever play him in the preseason, and then you feature him in the Pittsburgh game, basically trying to showcase his talent. And Mickey Loomis even came out during a press conference and said, this year we think you guys are going to see the real C.J. Spiller. If the real C.J. Spiller is unemployed, then yes, I just saw him because now he gone. I don't get it. We'll never understand what's going on when it comes to signing guys like this, especially if you're not going to give them the time or properly use them. We all know what C.J. Spiller can be. Mm-hmm. We just don't know what he can be in the opportunity.
Well, let me just compound on this. Let me just go ahead and break the bone all the way. I mean, if your argument is that C.J. Spiller is healthy, which we can all agree, I mean, nobody's going to lie to cover up that fact. But how about the fact that Travaris Cadet has only played one full season in his career? Now, granted, he only has been in the NFL years, but he bounced around to 3 teams last year, including the Saints. How about this one? He has a career 2.9. That's under 3 yards a carry in his entire career. Yes, he has limited touches. I understand that. He has actually played in more games than he has actually carried the football, which only brings me back to my original point. Why did we get rid of C.J. Spiller if we're going to pay for him anyway? Play him.
It's a $9 million question. As in $9 million guaranteed, not either way it goes. It doesn't matter what you do, C.J. Spiller is going to get that $9 million. But I attempt to see what he can bring you. He was a healthy scratch versus the Oakland Raiders. And as you said before, you can tell me all the talk you want to give me, all the coach speak you want to have. You will never convince me that Travaris Cadet should have had a bigger role in that game than C.J. Spiller. I'm sorry, Coach, I'm not buying it. It's just not going to happen for me, especially when I compare him to one of my favorite targets to go off on, Jarvis Byrd. There's no way possible you can tell me Jarvis Byrd deserves the benefit of the doubt after repeatedly showing he's cotton candy soft when it comes to being even available. And even in the times when he is available, he's basically showing you nothing on the field of a guy that they envision him to be. He's not Earl Thomas. He won't be Eric Berry. Hell, he's not even Jarvis Byrd that we thought we were getting at this point. So I have no clue of what's going on when you tell me Jarvis Byrd was worth the benefit of the doubt, but C.J. Spiller was not.
Well, let me throw this out there, and before anybody corrects me, I'm going to preface it with this. Yes, I realize these players play 2 different types of safety position, and not everybody is a big fan of Pro Football Focus, and if I remember right, Brian's one of those people. But
correct.
Listen to this stat. Roman Harper graded out as a 62.9. Jarvis Byrd graded out as a 48.0. Wow. So you're telling me that Roman, my grandfather Harper, is a better player than Jarvis Byrd. Yes, I understand 2 different sides of the safety position, and yes, I understand one played more snaps than the other, but still, if Jarvis Byrd is this $50 million man, he doesn't outrank Roman Harper?
Which is my issue. I can understand if you want to tell me Jarvis Byrd, hasn't been able to be the Jarvis Byrd he once was because the Saints try to deploy him in a different type of style. When Jarvis Byrd was in Buffalo, he was basically allowed to roam the field and be able to make plays. When Sean Payton got Jarvis Byrd and he was under Rob Ryan, Sean Payton wanted him to be like Earl Thomas over in Seattle. That's not who he is. But now with Dennis Allen back into the fold, especially over the last quarter of the season, you can't tell me Jarvis Byrd wasn't the guy he was supposed to be because Dennis Allen put him right back in what he was supposed to be. Deep quarters, sometimes he was in the cover 2, other times he was playing single high. Everything that he did, he basically just blew it. There was, in fact, the one play that comes to mind every time I think of Jarvis Byrd even being in the vicinity of the ball was the touchdown pass from Marcus Mariota to Delaney Walker in which Byrd and Keenan Lewis collided and the ball goes to Delaney Walker. 60 yards later, it's a touchdown. That is the play I will forever remember Jarvis Byrd for because that is indicative of his career as a Saint. He's always almost there, but he's never in position. Yep. I can't take it anymore with this guy simply because the Saints have to just cut their losses. Admit it like you want to do with C.J. Spiller. Admit it like you did with Junior Gillette and all these other guys. You got a dud, dude. You got a dud. No need to hang on to it. Let it go. Because
Well,
you can't tell me anybody can't be any worse.
I can say this about Jarris Byrd. I think he could do better for New Orleans because the thing that he had in Buffalo, he's yet to have here, and that is an effective pass rush. I mean, let's just go ahead and call it what it is. We overpaid for Byrd, who was a Pro Bowler, because he benefited from the defense in front of him. And that's not knocking Byrd. Byrd, it does have talent. But the type of defense that we're in, the state of the defense that we're in, is not suitable for a Jarris Byrd. Had Jarris Byrd come, say, next year, where even you were talking about the potential for a stronger defense is there, we might have seen more of an impact. But forcing this guy to struggle through our struggles is only making him worse. So, I mean, if you want to cut the loss, I can see that. Personally, I don't want to because I hate the idea, and we're doing it for $40 million right now, of paying people to not play for us. So even if he's going to be bad, put him in the backfield. Just let him play. Because, yes, somebody might be able to do better, but, man, it hurts me to read that much money being spent on people who aren't playing snaps. Which makes me want to go off on Mickey Loomis, but we've only got like an hour and 20 minutes left. We ain't got time.
Then I'll cut it in half for you. My angst never goes towards Mickey Loomis. Never does. I understand I may give him a bigger free pass than most people do, and it's because I truly feel like I understand the dynamics of what goes on. Mickey Loomis is a glorified accountant. Sure, he has the GM title. That I understand. Sean Payton is the general manager of the New Orleans Saints, and there's just no ways around it. Sean Payton says who he wants. Mickey Loomis says, okay, let me work the numbers. And that's pretty much how it goes. Now, mind you, the problem that I have with Mickey Loomis is that at what point do you say, Sean, dude, let's press the pause button for a minute? Because it's almost as if Sean Payton he's a rich kid with a black card. And now it's up to Mickey Loomis, a.k.a. uncle, dad, whatever, his benefactor, however you want to label it. It's time for Mickey Loomis to step in and say, okay, Sean, enough is enough. I paid Jimmy, you got rid of Jimmy. I paid Junior, you got rid of Junior. I paid, some of these guys, I had Jari paid, you wanted me to cut Jari. So at some point, you have to press the pause button and tell Sean, okay, enough is enough here. Let's scale back a bit. And that's something Mickey Loomis doesn't do. He allows Sean to be Sean. But sometimes when you give somebody that much power, it goes to their head. And Sean has full autonomy to do what he wants. And now you have a $9 million per year, 5-year contract in Sean's back pocket that says he goes nowhere. I don't know if that's good or bad at this point.
I said, I'm feeling you on that one, man. It's tough for me. I will say this, and we appear to have a caller, so I'll see if they got something to say in just a second. But let me say this. Mickey Loomis might be a figurehead at that position, but it still falls on him because ultimately he's the one that signs the paper. So like you said, I'm going to blame the uncle who's paying for the black card as much as I am the one who's actually running around doing these crazy things, which that's the only word I can use to describe stuff like C.J. Spiller and Brandon Browner and Jarris Byrd signing all that. Ultimately, there has to be some accountability passed down to everybody, so I can't just let the glorified accountant skate by because I do appreciate everything that he has done. I think that obviously he handled the Drew Brees contract situation beautifully. Could have anybody have done that better? Probably not. However, that does not wipe away the fact that we're giving away too much money and it's continuing to bite us when, come on, 3 years ago, weren't we talking about the same argument, how next year we're going to have more money because this cap stuff's going to roll off, and then we'll say the year after that, next year this is going to roll off because of all these signings, but we keep doing the same thing. Let me see, 504-518. You want to chip in on some of this? All right.
Call, are you there? Call, are you there? Okay.
All right. Guess they're just listening like the professor. But, yeah, come on. How can we really put all the blame on Sean Payton there? You've got to have someone, if you're really over the books, if you're really someone who's part of the team, you can't let it be run like that, and no other that I know of, besides maybe